Boardroom blazed. The 40th floor of Paragon Designs felt like winter had taken permanent residence. Everything gleamed in polished steel, white marble, and glass walls that commanded a view of Chicago's skyline that would make architects weep. Employees moved with quiet precision, conversations never rising above murmurs, fingers tapping on keyboards with metronomic consistency. Olivia Russell had designed it this way. As the youngest woman to helm a Fortune 100 company, she'd learned that efficiency thrived in cold climates. Her corner office stood as a transparent fortress, allowing her to survey her domain while remaining untouchable behind crystal-clear barriers. At precisely 8:30 each morning, Olivia would emerge from her private elevator dressed in tailored armor. Today, a charcoal suit with architectural shoulders and heels that announced her arrival with rhythmic authority. Her auburn hair was secured in a sleek chignon, and her amber eyes carried all the warmth of distant stars, beautiful but unreachable. "Good morning, Ms. Russell," her assistant Julian whispered, eyes fixed on his screen. Olivia nodded almost imperceptibly. Small talk was inefficiency distilled into sound. The quarterly creative review was shed for 8:45. Paragon's latest campaigns had been technically flawless, but emotionally barren. Failing to connect with audiences despite impeccable execution, the numbers reflected this disconnect. And Olivia detested numbers that traveled in the wrong direction. Executives assembled in the glass conference room, arranging tablets in perfect alignment as they awaited their CEO. The only sound was the gentle hum of climate control, keeping the room at a precise 67 degrees at 8:47. The elevator doors slid open again, and chaos personified strolled into Paragon's sterile environment. Dominic Torres arrived carrying a worn leather portfolio in one hand and a ceramic mug announcing creativity is messy in the other. His burgundy blazer was thrown over a graphic t-shirt, and his curly black hair defied corporate gravity. Behind him trailed the scent of coffee that wasn't from the approved company vendor. "Morning, everyone," he announced, his voice carrying the warmth of a summer bonfire into the frigid space. "Sorry about the time, had to stop and sketch the most amazing sunrise reflection on the river. Couldn't help myself." The other executives stared as though a tropical bird had somehow breached their Arctic sanctuary. In 5 years at Paragon, none had ever witnessed anyone arrive late, much less announce it with enthusiasm. Olivia turned toward the disruption, her gaze narrowing with laser precision. She had hired Dominic as creative director based solely on his portfolio's brilliance, but this was their first formal encounter. She said, her voice carrying the chill of Lake Michigan in February. "How generous of you to join us." Dominic dropped into the empty chair across from Olivia and smiled with genuine warmth. "The pleasure's all mine, Ms. Russell. Been looking forward to this meeting since I was hired." The room collectively held its breath. Nobody addressed Olivia Russell with such casual authenticity. "Perhaps you could explain why our engagement metrics fell 17% last quarter, while our creative budget increased by 25%, Olivia continued, fingers forming a cathedral before her. Dominic leaned back, completely at ease, despite the tension radiating from everyone else. "That's simple," he said, flipping open his portfolio with the casualness of someone discussing weekend plans. "We've been playing it safe, and safe is invisible in today's world." The client's ultimatum, unacceptable. The words sliced through the conference room as Beverly Montgomery, CEO of Montgomery Industries and Paragon's largest client, terminated the video call. Olivia's expression remained impassive, but her knuckles whitened around her tablet. The design presentation that her team had spent weeks perfecting had just been dismissed in less than 5 minutes. Well, Veronica Hayes, Paragon's marketing VP, broke the silence with practiced concern. That was unfortunate. At 45, with a silver streak in her otherwise perfect black bob, Veronica had mastered the art of appearing sympathetic while positioning for advantage. "Perhaps we should reconsider the direction Mr. Torres is taking us." Dominic leaned forward, unfazed by the disaster or Veronica's political maneuvering. "Beverly didn't hate our concept. She hated that it wasn't different enough from what her competitors are doing." "She hated something," Richard Blackwood, the CFO, muttered. and Montgomery represents 30% of our annual revenue. Olivia stood, commanding the room's attention. You have 48 hours to present something Beverly can't dismiss. Dominic, my office. Everyone else, clear your schedules. No one leaves this building until we have a solution. The glass door to Olivia's office closed with a soft click that somehow felt like thunder. She turned to face Dominic, amber eyes blazing. You promised revolution, Mr. Torres. Instead, you've delivered the same aesthetic minimalism everyone else is producing. I didn't hire you to be adequate. Dominic paced the office, energy radiating from him like heat. The presentation was watered down. What I originally created was bolder, but the team follows direction, Olivia interrupted. If your direction was diluted, that's your failure. He stopped pacing and faced her. May I be blunt? I expect nothing less. Your company culture is killing creativity. Everyone's so afraid of your disapproval that they edit themselves into blandness. They'd rather be invisible than wrong, instead of the Arctic shutdown he expected. Olivia walked to the window. Beverly gave us this account because I promised her innovation. She trusted me. The last 3 words carried weight beyond their syllables. Dominic joined her at the window. Give me 12 hours with 5 people I choose. No oversight, no premature judgments. Let me show you what happens when fear isn't driving the creative process. And if you fail, then you'll have concrete evidence I'm not the revolutionary my portfolio suggested. Olivia studied him, seeing not just confidence but conviction. Who do you need? Tessa from digital, Marcus from copywriting, Juniper from design, Wei from analytics, and he paused. You. Me. Genuine surprise flickered across her features. You know Beverly better than anyone? I suspect there's more creativity in you than this building allows people to see. Veronica appeared at the door, knocking lightly. Olivia, the board, is requesting an update on the Montgomery situation. Tell them it's being handled, Olivia replied without turning. They specifically asked about Mr. Torres's role in this setback. Dominic recognized the move. Veronica was positioning him as the scapegoat, eliminating a threat to her carefully constructed corporate hierarchy. The board can direct their questions to me, Olivia said with finality. And Veronica? Cancel my other appointments. I'll be working directly with the creative team for the next 12 hours. After Veronica left, visible displeasure in the tight line of her shoulders, Olivia turned back to Dominic. 12 hours, Mr. Torres? Show me what happens when fear isn't driving the process. Call me Dominic, he replied, already pulling out his phone to text the team members. And I'll need that conference room with the southern exposure, the one you use for board meetings. That room is reserved for people who need to feel important, he finished. We need it because it's the only space in this mausoleum with natural light and enough wall space for our process. Olivia almost smiled. Almost. You're either going to save this company or burn it to the ground, aren't you? For the first time, Dominic's smile faded into something more serious. Sometimes. Those are the same thing. Midnight revelation, the boardroom had transformed. Gone was the pristine emptiness, replaced by walls covered in sketches, photographs, and handwritten notes. Takeout containers created an impromptu cityscape on the conference table, and music played softly from a portable speaker. At 11:47 p.m., only Dominic and Olivia remained. He stood barefoot before the concept wall, tie long abandoned, sleeves rolled up, hair even more chaotic than usual. She had kicked off her heels hours ago, her chignon loosened into a soft ponytail, jacket draped over a chair. It's missing something, Dominic muttered, stepping back from their nearly complete campaign. It's honest, Olivia said, studying the core concept they'd developed. Instead of showing Montgomery Industries buildings as architectural marvels, they'd focused on the human moments happening inside them. The environmental engineer staying late because she believed in the mission. The maintenance worker who kept plants on the roof for migrating butterflies. The executive who mentored urban youth. Beverly doesn't just build properties, Dominic said. She builds communities, places where life happens. Olivia approached the wall, eyes tracing the narrative they'd constructed. When I was 19, my father lost everything in the 2008 crash. We'd been wealthy, then suddenly we were nothing. She touched one of the photographs. We moved to an apartment complex that should have been condemned. But the residents had created something remarkable there. They looked after each other. There was dignity in how they'd built a community despite having so little. Dominic was silent, recognizing the rarity of her disclosure. That's why I built Paragon the way I did, she continued quietly. Controlled, predictable, safe, and successful, he acknowledged. But at what cost? She turned to him. What about you? Where does your insistence on authenticity come from? Dominic sat on the edge of the table, considering her question. Parents owned a restaurant in Philadelphia. It's nothing fancy, but the food was honest, and the place was always full. When a chain offered to buy them out, consultants came in suggesting they streamline their menu, make it more marketable. My father threw them out. He smiled at the memory. He said, the day I serve food I wouldn't feed my own family is the day I close for good. What happened? They kept their restaurant. Still there, still packed every night. I learned that authenticity isn't just morally right, it's sustainable. People hunger for what's real. Olivia studied him in the dim light. You must think I've created a monster here. I think you've created exactly what you needed to survive, he said gently. But maybe survival isn't enough anymore. She looked back at the wall, at the authentic stories they'd captured. This is what's missing, she said suddenly, grabbing a marker. She wrote across the top of their concept, building more than buildings. Dominic's eyes widened. That's it. That's the thread that connects everything. Beverly doesn't just want innovation and design, Olivia realized. She wants meaning, purpose. Not just what Montgomery builds, Dominic added, excitement building, but why they build it. They worked feverishly for another hour, refinements flowing between them with a synchronicity that felt almost telepathic. When they finally stopped, exhaustion caught up with them both. We should get some sleep, Dominic suggested, checking his watch. Presentations in 7 hours. Olivia nodded, but made no move to leave. Do you think it will work? I think it's true, he answered. And truth has a way of resonating. She smiled then, a real smile that transformed her face. When did you know you had me figured out? I didn't, he admitted, and I still don't. But I'm enjoying the process of learning. Public failure, the Montgomery presentation had gone perfectly. Beverly had been moved to tears by their authentic approach, immediately approving the campaign with an increased budget. For 2 glorious weeks, Paragon rode the high of this success, with Dominic's creative team enjoying new freedom and Olivia cautiously embracing a more open culture. Then the campaign launched and everything imploded. #Montgomery fraud is trending nationwide, Tessa reported grimly, projecting social media feeds onto the conference room screen. A former employee is claiming the worker stories we featured were fabricated. He's released emails suggesting Montgomery knew about toxic materials in their Chicago development. The room fell silent as images of protesters outside Montgomery's headquarters filled the screen. This can't be happening, Juniper whispered. Richard Blackwood entered, tablet in hand. The board has called an emergency meeting. Beverly Montgomery is threatening to sue us for damages to her company's reputation. Couldn't quite hide his satisfaction. She's claiming our campaign made her vulnerable by emphasizing values her company doesn't actually uphold. All eyes turned to Olivia, who stood perfectly still, processing this catastrophe. Veronica spoke first. We need to distance ourselves immediately. Issue a statement that we were misled by Montgomery about their corporate practices. Absolutely not, Dominic countered. That would destroy any chance of salvaging the relationship. Relationship is already destroyed, Richard said coldly. Now it's about limiting Paragon's liability and reputational damage. Olivia raised a hand, silencing the room. Dominic, my office. Her voice revealed nothing. As the glass door closed behind them, Dominic spoke first. I stand by what we created. Montgomery misrepresented themselves. Stop. Olivia's voice was quiet but firm. The board wants your termination. Veronica has already drafted the announcement. Dominic absorbed this, nodding slowly. Of course, you need a scapegoat. Is that what you think? Something flashed in her eyes, hurt, perhaps. It's what makes business sense, he replied. The cold, efficient solution? She turned away, looking out at the city. 2 months ago, I would have agreed. Now I'm not so sure. Before he could respond, her intercom buzzed. Miss Russell, Beverly Montgomery is here. Unscheduled. Beverly burst in moments later, face tight with controlled fury. Olivia, what the hell is happening? I was about to ask you the same question, Olivia replied calmly. These allegations are a coordinated attack, Beverly said. Yes, there were problems with the Chicago project, but we addressed them years ago. This former employee was fired. For harassment, not whistleblowing. Can you prove that? Dominic asked. Yes, but it doesn't matter. By the time we clear our name, the damage will be done. Beverly paced the office. We built our campaign on authenticity, and now we look like hypocrites. Olivia and Dominic exchanged glances, a silent communication passing between them. If, Dominic said slowly, instead of fighting the narrative, we embrace it. Both women stared at him.
No company's perfect, he continued. What if Montgomery publicly acknowledges past mistakes and commits to transparency moving forward?
Not just damage control, but genuine accountability? That's corporate suicide, Beverly protested. It's human, Olivia countered, understanding dawning. And humanity is what made our campaign powerful in the first place. Outside the office, they could see Veronica and Richard waiting, vultures circling a perceived weakness. The board meeting would start in 30 minutes, potentially ending multiple careers. We have a choice, Olivia said quietly. Retreat to safety or push forward into the unknown. The authentic victory 6 months later, Paragon Designs occupied a different building. Gone were the sterile white walls and intimidating glass partitions. The new space featured exposed brick, abundant natural light, and collaborative areas where teams could work together without hierarchy. Olivia stood beside Dominic at the entrance to their largest conference room, now named the Crucible, after the crisis that had transformed them. Inside, teams prepared for the annual industry awards where Paragon was nominated in multiple categories. Nervous? Dominic asked, noticing her adjusting the sleeve of her emerald dress, a far cry from her former monochromatic wardrobe. Terrified, she admitted with a smile. But the good kind. The Montgomery campaign had indeed become a case study, though not the cautionary tale Richard Blackwood had predicted. Instead, the Montgomery Transparency Project was now taught in business schools as revolutionary crisis management. When faced with public criticism, Beverly Montgomery had taken the unprecedented step of opening her company's records, acknowledging past failures, and inviting former critics to help shape new corporate policies. The resulting campaign documented this transformation in real time, warts and all. It had been messy, comfortable, and absolutely authentic. Have you seen the latest numbers? Juniper called from inside, waving a tablet. Montgomery's consumer trust rating is now the highest in their sector. And our new client inquiries? Livia asked. Up 87% year over year, Wei confirmed. Turns out authenticity is highly profitable. Not everyone had survived the transition. Richard had resigned in protest when Olivia refused to fire Dominic. Veronica had eventually left for a competitor, uncomfortable with the less structured environment. But those who remained had built something remarkable on the ashes of the old Paragon. Ms. Russell? Julian approached, still her assistant, but now dressed in colors and speaking above a whisper. Your car's ready for the ceremony. We'll be right there, she nodded, then turned back to Dominic when Julian left. I never properly thanked you for nearly getting us both fired, he teased. For showing me that the safety I built was actually a prison. She gestured around them. This company was efficient before, but now it's alive. The wall behind them displayed Paragon's new slogan, Truth is our design language. The board meeting that day, Dominic said, when you walked in and announced, we would be supporting Beverly's transparency campaign instead of distancing ourselves. You thought I'd throw you under the bus? She finished. I did, he admitted. It would have been the safe play. Safety is overrated, she replied, echoing words he'd said to her months ago. I've learned there's a difference between controlling your environment and stifling it. Outside they could hear their team gathering, excited voices blending into the creative chaos that now defined Paragon. Ready to go win some awards? Dominic offered his arm. Olivia took it, then hesitated. Dominic, regardless of what happens tonight, I want you to know something. Her amber eyes, once cold and distant as stars, now held warmth and life. I would choose this messy, unpredictable, authentic path every time. Even knowing how close we came to losing everything, especially knowing that, she said firmly, because now I understand what my father lost wasn't just money, it was his authentic self. I spent years building walls to keep that kind of loss from happening again, never realizing I was the one trapping myself inside. As they joined their team, Olivia took one last look at the space they'd created together. Paragon wasn't perfect. It was better than that. It was real. And as they departed for the ceremony where their truth-centered campaign would indeed make history, Olivia realized something that her former self would have found terrifying. The most powerful position wasn't behind protective glass. Surveying her kingdom from a safe distance, it was here, in the beautiful mess of authentic human connection, where vulnerability wasn't weakness but the ultimate strength.